This is ABTV, Animal Bites Television. For animal lovers, by animal lovers.
It's egg production season, which is absolutely my favorite time of the year because you've worked so hard and finally you're seeing the fruits of your labor with these beautiful gems here. Just take a look at that clutch. I mean, it's something about those white eggs that just gets you so excited in the sense that you've worked for months and finally you're starting to see eggs.
My name is Brian Barczyk. I'm no zoologist, just a guy with a passion for animals. And that passion often takes me on animal adventures around the world.
This is the time of the year that snake breeders love the most. This week, I'll be collecting snake eggs. You're watching Snake Bites. So the colubrid snake breeding season really starts sometime in February when we bring our snakes up from their winter slumber or hibernation. At that point, we're going to warm them up over a couple-week period and start to feed them. Now that's when the work really begins because you have to feed these guys at least twice a week. They have a high metabolism, and if you want to be successful with your breeding, it's all about putting nutrition in. I always say calories in, production out. So you've got to get a lot of food into those females. And of course, if you're feeding something, there's going to be a lot of waste. So we're cleaning these snakes every single day. We go through and spot clean, make sure they have fresh water. After a week or two, we start to put males and females together. Every single day, we have to switch males into new cages and watch their breeding. It's a very work-intensive process, but it's so worth it. I tell you, there's no doubt the colubrid room really keeps us busy. But after a couple months of doing that process, feeding, cleaning, breeding, we start to see the results of what we're doing. And we start to look for things like this, which is a corn snake that is swollen up with eggs. Now the signs that you're going to see is of course that big dissension, and she's going to look really full, almost like she ate a ton. Now typically right around a week or week and a half before they're going to go into their pre-lay shed, they'll go off of food. So I know this girl hasn't fed in a couple weeks because I can look at her feed chart right here. So I know that these are eggs right here and she's fully distended with them. Now the next thing you're going to see is that they're going to go opaque. Once they get to that stage, we put a lay tag on just like this, which just basically says this animal is gravid and she's going to shed, and then we can predict the day. They're going to lay their eggs about 7 to 10 days after the shed. So once we put the lay tag on, you can see this girl is almost about to shed. She's actually cleared up. So she went into that blue or shed phase and she's already cleared. Probably today, tonight, or tomorrow, she's going to shed. And now the next step is that we're going to mark that shed. This one shed on the 1st of the month, which means 7 to 10 days later, we can expect to get eggs. So now it's the fun part. Let's go on an egg hunt. So usually when I'm doing a snake bite show, things are kind of produced out and I know what I'm going to say, but today, because I'm collecting eggs and it's such a cool experience, I'm just going to bring you guys along on the journey, how I'm feeling about collecting these snakes. So it's really cool when you've been working so hard to try to produce something to finally see eggs like this. This is actually a het scaleless corn snake clutch right here. And the scaleless corn snakes are so awesome. So it's just really cool to know that, you know, eventually some baby scaleless corn snakes may hatch from this guy. And this is just kind of a daily routine this time of the year. And I have to 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 eggs, 8 good eggs, no slugs. So that's pretty good. It's a relatively small corn snake. So, but you know, hey, it's scaleless to het. So theoretically there could be 4 scaleless corns, which is pretty cool. And it's really important when you're this time of year to do a lot of data. You know, I mean, you want to make sure that you always have everything marked and redundancies. Like I'm marking the date it laid here. I'm marking the day on its feed card. I'm putting a check on this. So that way we know we can get that cage revamped, get water in with it, and start feeding it right away. And then of course I have to write it down in my logbook because every single snake we produce, we want to know exactly who the mom and the dad is for a couple reasons. Number one, that way we can kind of continue to protect ourselves from too much inbreeding. We don't want to have stuff you know, get over inbred, obviously. So, you know, what I'm doing is I'm marking down in the egg book, and then I'm marking on the egg box itself too. That way, you know, again, I have redundancy. That, you know, I'll be honest with you, that one of the problems with probably having a bigger collection is that you do have to rely on other people to take care of things. And although I'm always happy with our crew, you know, people make mistakes. Heck, I make mistakes. So we want to make sure that we always know what's going on so that there's no way that anyone can kind of, oops, you know, something popped out of a clutch and now we don't know who the mom and the dad is. And so again, you know, we want to know who the mom and dad is, not only for inbreeding and stuff like that, but we also want to make sure that we can provide that information to customers. That way, if you specifically want an animal, we know exactly, here's another scaleless corn snake clutch, and this is another, you know, beauty. Again, not a real big clutch. Again, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 eggs, 1 egg more than the last clutch, but still really beautiful, you know. And the thing is, guys, is that, you know, I've been breeding snakes now since I was 15 years old, and you know, it's hard to really even express to people how much I'm still into it. And you know, even though I'm you know, probably going in the opposite direction and not really growing my collection, but downsizing it a bit because, you know, I want to do more stuff with snake bites and animal bites. The fact is, I still just absolutely love breeding snakes. I mean, I love the whole process. You know, I wake up in the morning and I can't wait to get to work to see, you know, I mean, you know, even in the breeding season, it's really exciting to see, you know, what's breeding and how animals are looking and when they start to swell up and all that other stuff. You know, the thing is that I always kind of tell people that you have to love breeding snakes or even working with snakes, or maybe even working with any animal, to be honest with you, more than you can absolutely imagine, because it's going to be long days. It's going to be a lot of times when friends are going out and doing fun stuff or going to a ball game or whatever the case may be. You're stuck working with animals. You know, I mean, these guys they're not on your schedule. You're on their schedule, so you have to really love it to a level that it's almost habitual. It's almost crazy, you know what I mean? Like, you have to wake up in the morning and want it so bad. And the thing is after so many years of doing it, you got to get to a point where you don't start, oh, this is another one. This is actually a het striped scaleless corn snake clutch. And this is actually a little bit smaller eggs, but 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So it's kind of weird, right? 8, 9, 10. I'm trending in the right direction, if nothing else. That's really good to see. But again, you know, I think that, you know, the one thing I always tell people when they ask me, like, you know, how can I breed snakes for a living? How can I do what you want to do? I always tell people, will you be able to survive the grind that it takes to breed snakes? You know, the fact that year after year, you really never have any downtime. You're always working. You're always, you know, at the snake's beckoning call. And like I said, to me, I couldn't imagine life any different way. And whether I stay a commercial breeder or eventually cycle my way out to something different or whatever life brings my way, the fact is I will always work with animals, and I'll always work with snakes because I love them. I mean, there's nothing, you know, no matter how much work it is and how late the nights are, I'm still just, you know, there's never a time I'm not excited. Every single clutch of eggs I see, I get excited about. You know, it's not like, you know how sometimes you've been doing something for a while and you know, the newness kind of wears off and you're like, yeah, whatever, I've done that, I've been there. You know, for whatever reason, and I don't know what the reason is, I just don't get that feeling, you know what I mean? I'm just as excited today as I was when I was 15 or 16 years old. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certainly, you know, certain projects that you're more excited about, something that maybe you put 4, 5, 6 years into. And it's funny because some of these projects I'll put that many years into and they're not worth anything. It's not really an investment, so to speak. I mean, some pay off really well, obviously things like scaleless ball pythons and other things, but a lot of times I'll put 6, 7 years into a project, and then when I finally hit it, I'm selling them for $25 or $30, you know. Certainly wasn't worth all that time and energy that I put into it as far as a financial, but it was rewarding to me because I absolutely just wanted to see that animal produced. And whether it's a colubrid or a live-bearing snake or a ball python or a whatever type of snake, and this is really a cool snake here. Take a look at this really quick. This is a high white California king, and you can see how cool these eggs are. These are, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8 eggs. And I always say, just take a look at this really quick. This is what I am just fascinated about nature. I mean, look at how skinny she is after she laid that clutch of eggs. I mean, she put so much energy into that clutch of eggs. And then you look at that little snake right there, and then you look at this, and you think, how in the world did that fit into that snake's body? And you know, she looks terrible right now, but you know, the thing that's amazing about colubrids in particular is 1 or 2 meals and she'll really beef up, and within a week or 2 she'll be back to her old weight. And of course, colubrids can double clutch. And again, you know, I work with all kinds of different snakes. They don't have to be super expensive or rare. I think that, you know, I'm just kind of a snake nut, so to me, I don't really look at like the value of animals as far as what I want to work with. I look at them as just, you know, do I want to work with that animal? And then if I can make some money off it and make it profitable, then that's even better. You know, I mean, I guess the old saying, do what you love and the money follows, I guess really does stand true when it comes to reptiles as well. But it's just, it's cool because again, you know, well, going back to what I was saying before is that when me and Lori were alone, there were several times that, you know, I'm sorry, 2, 4, 6, 8 eggs again. 8 seems to be a pretty common number today. Where, you know, a clutch of snakes would hatch out that was supposed to be, you know, say banana cow kings, and they would hatch out, you know, Brooks king snakes. And that, again, that was when we were early on and we didn't have employees, so it was always my mistake. Maybe Lori's probably more like mine. 2, 4, 6, 8. That's C8. And you know, but we didn't have anyone you can't really blame anyone for those mistakes but myself, so it was pretty easy to figure out, okay, well, I marked C7 instead of D7 or something like that. So it was pretty easy to kind of figure out what I did wrong. But over time, you kind of learn to make sure that the systems are so redundant and so kind of dummy proof. That way, you know, people do make mistakes, it's very easy to figure out. And so it's really simple to kind of backtrack and make sure that if one thing is wrong, it's pretty easy to figure out. And again, that's, you know, it goes to a few different things. Number one, it goes to, you know, the ability to give our customers the proper documentation they need to be happy. And then the other thing is, of course, you know, for our records, we want to know what our production is like and we're moving this way. And we want to, you know, so we can kind of track which clutches and which, you know, groups are doing the best for us if we need to make any kind of decisions about changing things and so on like that. So basically, I'm just looking at the red tags here, and I'm looking for snakes that have already laid. So I went through this morning, and then what I do is, just because it's easier to go through, and by the way, these egg boxes are full up. So what I'm going to do is just put these up here. These are now done, and you can kind of see we just got started with egg production, but you know, just in the last week we've had this many eggs laid, and it won't be long before this entire row will be filled up with eggs and coming back the other way. So it's always exciting. But again, what I do is I go through in the morning and I look at all the red tags that have laid dates on them, and I just put a sticky on them. That way I can go back and pull eggs later in the day. Sometimes females are still laying, maybe they're on their last egg or two, and I want to make sure that I'm you know, giving them enough time to get all those eggs out, because the one thing that you'll definitely see is that if you pull a clutch, you know, you open a box and a female's laying, and I don't know if there's any more in this one, so I think we actually can turn the corner here because that was it for this side. You can go back and it gives them a little more time, because if you shock them like, oh my gosh, they're laying, sometimes they call it denosia or egg binding, and that can be a major problem with snakes. So giving them that extra 3-4 hours is pretty important and really helps out a lot. And again, you know, I tell you, it never gets old. I don't know how many thousands of clutches, I mean probably tens of thousands of clutches of eggs I've pulled in the last, you know, 25, 26 years. It's still awesome every single time, I tell you. I'm always, you know, shocked when people get used to, like, oh yeah, it's just another day or something like that, because for me, it's certainly not another day. And 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You know, in the egg part, you know, I mean, they're just eggs. They're not baby snakes, right? But you got to have eggs before you can have baby snakes. And so to me, it's a great part of the progress. And although the egg pulling, you know, can be pretty time consuming. I mean, there's days that I'm in here till 11 or 12 o'clock at night pulling eggs. It's still really rewarding, and it gives you hope for like, and every time you produce a clutch of eggs too, the other thing is that you never know what's going to hatch, right? You basically like, maybe this is going to be something really cool. And I always say that there's like two different things when you're breeding snakes. First is the projects, that you're literally going for. So when you breed like, a het to a het or whatever the case may be, and you're hoping to produce that really gem of an animal, that's fine. That's good. And then you just got to hope that your odds hit and all that other stuff. But then there's, especially when you do snake, I was going to say when you do snakes in volume, it increases your chances of producing something unusual, like a freak type animal. But the truth is I know people that have produced their very first clutch of eggs and just completely hit this unusual animal. So it's pretty cool. This is actually a het plasma, which is of course the lavender diffused or lavender blood red corns, and I've always loved those animals. Just, oh my gosh, they're definitely one of my favorite corn snakes. So it's always nice. This is a het plasma bred to a plasma, so theoretically half the babies should come out plasma, which is good. And our fertility has been really good this year, which has been a blessing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. It's not always the case. Sometimes you do everything right, and sometimes your fertility just isn't good. I would say with colubrids this year, we're just getting started, but certainly our fertility is in the 95, 97% range, which is really often, oftentimes not the case. Sometimes you'll be in the 70 to 80% range on a bad year, and on a good year, maybe 85%. So we're really running good this year, and that's really a testament to just, the crew, 2, 4, 5, the crew and Lori's been working really hard in here, and everyone's just been putting in a lot of time and energy to try to make sure that this, is a really successful breeding season. But even sometimes when you do everything right and you work really hard, maybe the temperatures are a little off. Like, we keep this room relatively cool. It's the coolest room in the building. It's at about 78 degrees in here, dips down to maybe 76 at night. And so it's important, because with colubrids, if you get too warm, the male sperm can go bad. So again, short periods of time, like obviously in the wild, males are gonna get to a certain temperature and that's not a problem. But you can, they can also move away and go into cooler areas. Whereas here they're kind of stuck in one area, so we have to give them the heat gradient that works. And again, look at it, it's just it's just so awesome. I mean, this is a snow corn snake, and again, another beautiful clutch of eggs. Not even, I think I've had, on everything I've pulled today, I've had a very, very small amount of slugs, just a handful of slugs. So hey, the snake gods are on our side this year, and hopefully it'll continue to be that way. And again, I think it's, again, the temperature, the condition of the animals, the fact that we've really worked hard at making sure that, they've been fed well, and that they have plenty of beef and stuff like that. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. But you're still, they're still living animals, right? You're at the mercy of nature, and sometimes things just don't work out the way you want them to. But nevertheless, I mean, this is probably, quite honestly, my favorite job out of everything I do. And sometimes, maybe I can think, pulling babies is cooler. To some extent, it really is, because then you actually see the little life. You're like, oh my God, that snake is hatched here, and you see, it's like, I always think of things like, how weird is it to think like I'm the first thing that they've seen, other than maybe their sibling snakes, And then I often wonder, like, I wonder what they think, like when they're like, what the hell is this guy? who is this guy that just opened this egg box? So certainly hatching snakes is pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie at all and say that it's not. But pulling eggs is cool too, to me anyways, because it like I said, it's that progression of what's coming, and without getting eggs, you aren't gonna get baby snakes, and so this is the next step. So regardless, I think we've collected all the eggs for the day, which is pretty awesome. And oh no, one more clutch. See, I thought I had one more clutch down here when I was doing it. And this is actually a sun-kissed, a hypo sun-kissed corn snake. And let's see what she has in here. Yep, nice, again, beautiful clutch of eggs, you know, just perfect, pearly white. You know, oh wait, there's one slug in here. See, this is a good example. I can show you guys really quick. So basically, take a look at this really quick. So if you see, these eggs obviously are nice and white and pearly, and then look at this one right here. That one is squishy, yellow. You know, that's no good. That's an infertile egg. So, and again, you know, why is it infertile? It could have been a sperm issue. It could have been a female issue. You know, there could be a million different things. The other thing I want to really talk about, I haven't really said anything much today about, but is if you notice, these eggs are stuck together. You know, I mean, you can see these guys are like a clump, right? And this one just moved on me. So. And the reason for that is, I mean, some of you guys may know this, I'm assuming some of you certainly do, is that, you know, with snakes, and not so much with all lizards like geckos aren't this way or anything like that, but snakes actually, the embryo adheres to the top of the egg, and then an air bubble actually forms on the top of the egg, and that's how that animal respirates. You got to remember, even when you're taking care of eggs, that they're breathing inside those eggs. There's an air exchange in there. That's why it's important to exchange the air in your egg boxes, because the animals can actually suffocate if too much CO2 gets into it. And as they get further into development, they're going to respirate more, and you have to exchange that air even more. You're going to start losing eggs, which is really important. But regardless, with snakes, that little air bubble is how they respirate. So if you flip that upside down, believe it or not, that baby snake is going to drown. Now, of course, you know, if you ever have a clutch of eggs that you need, you can candle them and just put the little red dot or air bubble to the top. But this is nature's way of making sure that these eggs, you know, will make it. And that's, if they're clumped together, they're not going to be as easy to roll around, which is just, you know, again, that's it's always amazing how nature takes care of its own, and it's just it's an amazing thing, and it's great to be kind of a steward of the reptiles, in the sense that, you know, I feel so blessed to be able to wake up in the morning and work with animals and do what I really love. And you know, and you know, anyone that doesn't think that I appreciate every moment of it doesn't know me well. This is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 eggs. So 13 eggs is going to wrap up our day. I hope you guys have enjoyed kind of tagging along with me, seeing the snake eggs. Again, you know, this wasn't a highly produced, you know, situation here, 2, 4, 5. It was more just kind of like, hey, hang out with me while I do something that I think is one of the coolest things that I do. And as always, you know, I'm Facebooking and tweeting my way through it. When I'm pulling snake eggs, I'm all the time taking pictures. I'm tweeting them, I'm Facebooking, I'm Instagramming. So make sure to follow me over at SnakeBytesTV and on Instagram at SnakeBytes.tv. Until next week, you've been watching Snake Bites.
Hi, I'm Peter Birch, an Aussie bloke who loves wildlife. My respect for nature started when I was a young boy in rural New South Wales. Since then, it's exploded into an obsession. New episodes only on AnimalBytesTV.